Welcome, everybody, to the Bush and Me Show, The Last Dance Recap, episodes 7 and 8. We tried to call it Turning Tory, but after last week, I don't think that's going to work anymore.
Yeah, it might be Turning Bush.
All right, a quick recap before we get into it. This was one of my favorite two episodes so far. It was action-packed. It was full of emotion. And it kind of had a little did you know, because it taught me a lot of stuff that looking back at like what was going on that time, I didn't know a lot of this stuff. But it was loaded with Jordan's desire to win was kind of throughout both episodes. We got to see James Jordan, his relationship with Michael, and ultimately his death. Jordan's first retirement, which led him to baseball. They talked about that a little bit. We got to see Scottie come up as the man. We forgot how good that team still was with Scottie in the lead, but then they showed us how Scottie gave up on the team. We can get more into that later. I wrote down B.J. Armstrong, Gary Payton, and Nick Anderson. Three things that motivated MJ throughout this. Jordan coming back with the 4-5. We got into that a little bit. 70-12, the best team ever at that point, which has been broken since then. And they left us hanging with the Pacers and the Bulls. One of the greatest Eastern Conference Finals in '98. Went to 7 games. So we'll get into that later. Torrey, we'll start with you. I know you probably didn't learn anything new about MJ. You already didn't know. But what were your initial thoughts?
No, I loved the episode. I thought it was the best too, easily. When you see his passion, again, we didn't learn. I'm not going to keep dogging my guy out, but we know what type of guy he is. But to see, like the last few minutes of episode 7 to me was powerful. To hear him break down how, he never asked his teammates to do anything that he wouldn't do. And obviously, he had his own way of going about it. He wanted to push everyone to that level. And obviously the way he went about it might have been the best. Because obviously people were beating around the bush about it, but they didn't feel like he was a good guy, but they knew he was a great basketball player and very competitive. I'm talking, when I mean good guy, not mean off the court. I mean, in the workplace, in the work environment, which was the standard that he set. But to watch him and to see him get emotional about it, like, that's next level when it comes to being a competitor. My guy broke down in tears thinking about it. Like, he hasn't played basketball in I don't know how long now, right? And he's that passionate about it. Like, he hasn't played, I think, the Wizards, I was in 7th grade. You know what I mean? And
Right.
just thinking about playing again, it's pretty crazy.
The game just meant that much to him. Like, just like you said a second ago, Tor. Every time he went on that court, how is he going to win? And he pushed his teammates to levels that they probably didn't like. They probably didn't understand, but they were the last team standing. So it was like a little give and take. They're like, I can deal with this to a certain point, but we're going to have to win. Now, if you're treating your players like that and you're not winning, then it's like, for what? You can't just be,
Right.
You can't just be an asshole for no reason and we're still, not making the playoffs or not making it to the finals. So just like both of you guys just said, the desire to win has been there from episode 1 until this episode. But to me, it just got ramped up even more, after the first 3 championships. And then you see the way he approached baseball, which we're going to get into next. And then when he came back, that desire was ramped up even more. So it was 2 tremendous episodes.
I think something, too, going back to Jordan and talking about his competitive nature, I think something that we may have all missed in talking about that is that I think he felt some type of way about people constantly attacking him. Like, to live like that, to play like that, takes a lot to hold in that emotion. And, like, let's face it, everyone's human. Like, you don't like when people talk about you. Like, you carry that weight. And the edge that he played with, it takes a lot out of you emotionally when you're only motivating, not your only, one of your biggest motivating factors is what the haters say. Like, it takes a toll on you. And to see that breakdown, I think it was more than just his competitive nature. I think it's that him feeling like he's being attacked for being the kind of competitive animal that he is.
But he definitely was looking for it, though. You could see him watching what they're saying before the game in the newspaper, seeing what this person is saying. For me, I know when I played, honestly, I didn't really like seeing it. You know what I'm saying? I don't like seeing what people say on social media because, people can just be, pieces of what. at times, but I don't like seeing it in the news. I didn't like seeing it, but to me, it was like, okay, what am I going to do to take those comments and have them minimized in the future? I'm going to become the best player that I can. But he would see that. He would go and look for it and be like, okay, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something before this game. I'm going to get you back for saying this. It's always like he had this, he had something to go prove every single night.
And he even created it. Made up something.
Right.
You know?
Right. He just made up a story in his head.
Really made it up. Like, as a competitor, man, I'm telling you, I've been in that boat where it's like, people are like, oh, like, is he going to be good? Is he going to be a bust? Is he going to be whatever? Like, that stuff weighs on you. And in your mind, you're like, man, I'm going to show y'all cat. Like, you know, you ain't saying it that nicely, but you like, I'm going to show y'all. And then when you do it, you see your haters. And it's like how Jordan's saying, like, man, look, you know the deal. Like, I am who I said I was. Right? Like, and I knew I was going to win, and you disrespecting me, you didn't believe in me. Like, that takes a lot out of you emotionally as a competitor.
It's funny you say that because when we were watching and I saw the LaBradford Smith story, I didn't know who LaBradford Smith was, but there's some guy from Louisville that scored 37 points on Jordan and puts his arm around him and says, nice game, Mike. And Mike's like, I'm going to get him back. And then you find out years later. I was thinking about Torrey, too, because we talked about this last time about creating things to get you motivated. And for them to find out years, 15, 20 years later that he made it up, it's just classic. Going into his emotion, like you guys talked about, he played with high emotion throughout everything, but then you look at he lived with emotion as well. He looks at the iPad when he sees his mom reading the letter earlier in the episodes, and he gets a little teary-eyed. He cried. He almost cried, like you said, when he was talking about his philosophy on winning, and he had to call for the break. And he got mad at that Sports Illustrated article. So we've seen all levels of emotion from him. But the part that I've loved throughout this is in the moments where most of us would lose our cool, like when they lost to the Pistons or after that game one against the Magic when he was wearing the 4-5 and he turned the ball over. And then not only did he not shoot the game winner, passed it out of bounds. Like those are moments when he could have like completely lost it. Like we saw Scottie. Scottie couldn't control his emotions and just said, I'm not playing anymore. Or Scott, when they were playing on the Dream Team, and Scottie was talking about Kukoc, and he said, I don't think he'd play in the NBA. And you see Jordan's interview, and he's just like, well, I think that's a little extreme. You just saw, like, how a guy who lived on such an emotional level, like, you didn't act emotionally. It's almost like all his decisions were, like, meticulous. And he knew, like, he was a business. He was bigger than that, and he had to always be even keel.
You got to carry yourself that way. You know, you're not going to try to do anything that's going to be detrimental to your name and acting out. You know, he was never going to act out, but he always had a reason to act up when he was on that court. You know, he always found that reason. But like you said, he got tired of the Pistons beating him up and not being able to overcross that. But he didn't do what the Pistons did and pull that petty move of not shaking their hands. No, he always showed respect because that's honestly at the end of the day, what he had for the game was respect and then love, you know, and that's where his competition came from.
I think he did a great job of not showing it. But Jordan is also the guy. You ever seen that like meme with the smiling face, but it's crying behind it? Like, people who hold in that much emotion, I'm one of those guys, I will admit. Like, I'm all right, I'm fine. If somebody asks you if you all right, you probably be the first one breaking down. Like, that's
how tell you, no, I'm not all right.
Yeah, like, why start breaking down? I mean, like, it takes a lot, man, emotionally to play at that level. And he consistently did it, but also learning that in a clutch moment of a game, like, Michael Jordan made a mistake. Like, who would have thought it? Like,
right.
I thought the guy was invincible. He was perfect. And even to see the responses like from the media back then, I was like, oh, Michael Jordan is human. You know, like he had that standard and you know the weight that he carried with him to the next game and got out of that jersey quick.
45 don't look like 23. All right, what about baseball? Did you guys learn anything new on that aspect? I thought growing up, I had to listen to everybody say, you know, they threw him right into AA because he's Michael Jordan. Why no one else starts in AA? And then to look back and think they only did it because the media area wasn't big enough in single area rookie ball. Like I was like, oh, that would all make sense. And I was talking to you before. I didn't know that Reinsdorf just paid him his basketball contract, so he was playing AA, making $3 million a year.
I kind of had to double take when I saw that part. I was like, hold on, he's still getting $3 million. But that right there goes to show you the type of respect and appreciation that the Chicago Bulls organization did have for Michael Jordan, because those years that he did win the 3 championships, he was making a couple $1 million a year. He really didn't make that big life-changing money in the NBA until he did come back, and he had those couple years where he made upwards of $30 million a year back in '96 and '97, which is a lot of money. But just to show you that the one thing I loved about his baseball was everybody thought he really wasn't that good, but when you see the execs and everybody who was around him saying that how much he went from here to here in a matter of a year and a half, I thought that was pretty cool to see. It just kind of shows you the kind of determination that Mike has, whether it was basketball or baseball.
I mean, this wasn't a Tim Tebow story. I mean, he was an athlete, and the seat of response to everything I heard growing up was that he was garbage.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Everybody said he wasn't good.
He was solid. He obviously a baseball player would say he wasn't good, right? Because someone came into your sport and jumped into AA. I'd be mad. Some guys spend their entire life trying to get to AA. But he went in and he did well. You could continue to see improvement, which is what happens in any and every league. As you show improvement, you have the opportunity to move up. And with time or even with age, you think he would have been all right.
It's funny, growing up too, I heard that he was garbage, but also heard that he was taking someone's spot. Why would he do this? He's taking someone's job. But you don't see all the extra jobs he created throughout that. They needed more media there. Man. They needed – Terry Francona was the manager there. He's a World Series winning manager for the Indians and the Red Sox. He would have never – I'm not going to say never, but it propelled him a lot faster with all those scouts there watching Jordan. So it was good to see that part too. We got to get into Scottie giving up as two ex-athletes, I can say now, both retired. Looking at Scottie, the play was called. It wasn't called for him. He's supposed to be the leader now. Jordan's gone. How would that make you guys feel as a teammate?
I thought it was a very selfish move on Scottie's part. I know we're in the heat of I can take myself back to the heat of a battle, the heat of a game, and somebody's like, Torrey, get in. We need you for this play. And you're like, nah, I'm good. We would all be looking down nah, that's just not what you do in a team setting, because I know I can only speak for myself, but, when I'm in that team setting, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I'm not letting my teammates down. Now, your number wasn't called right there, Scottie, but you still are a big presence on that team. Now, what if Tony Kukoc would have missed that shot and they wouldn't have won that game? Then it would have been much more of an issue. But Tony Kukoc bailed Scottie Pippen out, in my opinion, because they were able to let it go, sweep it under the rug, because they ended up winning the game. But if they would have lost, that would have been a huge stain to Scottie's reputation.
It would have created more division, you're right.
Yeah.
I think as a competitor, obviously it hurts to see your teammate essentially just quit on you. But to his defense, when you feel like you're the guy and you earned that right, Phil wouldn't have drew up a play and said, hey, Scottie, this play is for you. Nah, bro, this is going to Jordan. We're trying to get to him. Your option B. He didn't have the opportunity to be the guy, and it was his year. He had been waiting for that. He had earned it, and he played at an MVP level all year, and he doesn't get first dibs at it. I feel him on the disrespect. It was just something he couldn't handle emotionally. And I kind of been at – I'm not going to say I've been all the way in that situation, but I've had a time where, as a receiver, sometimes you rotate throughout the game to try to stay fresh at the end. And I remember one time, it was the fourth quarter, our coach took me out for a second. We're down. I'm like, I look like I got out. I wouldn't go, disrespect him. But I just looked at him, I'm like, bro, it's the fourth quarter. It's crunch time. You better get me back in. You know what I'm saying? And I was out for a couple of days and I went back in. But I felt in my heart bro, you just took me out. I just thought about, you have literally flashes of memories of bro, I've messed up 1,000,001 times in my career, but I can show you 1,000,001 in crunch time where I've held it down and I've got it done. Period. And so when you feel like as a competitor, you're removed from that and it's basically a coach's decision, it bothers you. But You never quit.
Yeah.
Can't quit. We got to get into LeBron versus Jordan here because it's a lot of things going around the internet with Jordan laughing at LeBron saying he's the best.
That's hilarious.
We did start this trying to get Torrey to come up to Jordan, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I did listen to your latest podcast with Adam Jones, and it kind of brought LeBron up a little bit for me. I didn't know if I was gonna tell you this or not. If you guys aren't listening to Trending Thoughts with
you're
Torrey,
only supposed to be converting him, not both of us. We've already talked about this.
I know you need to check it out if you haven't listened, because every week I listen, it gets better and better. The Ed Reed one was very relatable for everybody out there, and the Adam Jones one, just to hear his voice, because he's over in Japan now, and you're like, oh, what's he up to? But you guys get into community service, you get into the quarantine, you get into race in America right now. It's all very relatable, and if you guys aren't listening, get out there and listen to it because you can learn a thing or two. But the reason I brought it up is because you try to formulate a question to him about Jordan kind of having responsibility, being an athlete, and he kind of cut you off and I started turning it up when I heard him say, I've seen your tweets out there with you think LeBron's the GOAT. So I turned it up a little bit and I was listening to him, but he made a great point for both point of views where Jordan wasn't around in social media. He was pre-social media. So the only time Jordan was required really to say anything was when the microphone was in his face. He didn't have the ability to sit there and, just send a tweet out or anything like that. And also that we held him at a higher level of accountability than we did Magic, Isaiah, which I thought those were two very good points. But the other great point that he mentioned was LeBron. LeBron has used his platform to help everyone else. And not only that, but, I mean, he brought me to think that, LeBron called the president a dummy. Who else could call the president a dummy right now? Oh, a bum. He was a bum.
It's crazy to and I agree with him. I thought it was interesting to hear that, but then I hear Adam speak about that, and I think of, I believe Rodney King was in '94. We're talking about prime Jordan here, right? There's an opportunity back then. I mean, Ali was still way before Jordan, and he had opportunity. We all knew what he stood for. So I think it is a great argument that there are other big guys by him who don't get pressured by it because of who they were. But again, when you're that figure, and we talked about it, and you're from North Carolina, an area that was the segregated South, right? And it's like, man, you had the opportunity to be a voice. But I do respect people doing things their way. You're not obligated to do it, right? Even though I may feel like you are, because man, I look up to you like you're me. I feel like I can be like you, and I feel like you care about me. But when you dismiss certain things, and I feel like it's dismissing certain things when you act like you can't relate to it when you come from it. But everyone has their own way of being better. Like I said, we talked about it the show before last. I mean, he gave money, right? He gave money. He was quiet. But sometimes you have power to do more just by your voice and your presence. Disappointing, but I'm glad you're coming over to the LeBron side.
I don't know. We're there. Look, MJ's here, but LeBron is just, if he builds one more school, goddamn, he's gonna be, he might take the reins. But LeBron he's been a tremendous force in the community, and we're very fortunate to have a leader like that now in the NBA, because what it does is it's a trickle down effect, because once LeBron says it, it's like, okay, well, some of the other guys will look at LeBron like, well, he's doing it. He's doing the right thing. So I'll continue to fall in line, and I'll speak up, and I'll do things that can help my community out, or something that I'm passionate about. So, it's hats off. Like you were saying, we are in two different eras when it comes to media and you being an individual and getting your message out. Could he have gone a different way? Of course he has, but I know he did help out. But it makes you feel good when somebody who looks like you wants to see you, and they wants to see you do better, or your people do better, and they actually say something about it as well.
When I heard Adam starting that, and I was turning the radio up, thought he was going to go at you about LeBron, and ended up changing me. So the other part that he caught me with, not to get off topic, but when you guys were talking about Freddie Gray, and he was talking about, was he a saint? No, but was he a human being? Yes. And that I was literally driving, it gave me chills. So if you guys aren't listening to it, you need to chime in. Listen to it. Bush, you need to listen to it. He gave you a little shout out in there too.
I listened to it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it tomorrow. I had a little bit of a busy day. I think this is my third or fourth Zoom for the day, but I'm gonna get into it tomorrow. But yeah,
Did you do all of them without a hat?
I did. You know, I feel good about my hair right now. Maybe you just can't see how it really looks, but it don't look too bad right now. So stop judging me. But look, I did want to ask you guys about this. In the one finals after his dad passed, when I was looking at it, I felt kind of like, did MJ drop those couple games on purpose so he could win the finals on Father's Day? You know, because he never gave Gary Payton the explanation. He was like, I had other things on my mind. He didn't say what them other things was. But I think he might have looked at that schedule and be like, you know what? I might let them squeak these two off. I'm going to win this last one for my dad. No. I don't know. That was just
No chance.
Torrey's like, I'm going to let you finish.
He's petty, but I don't know if he's that.
That is one conspiracy theory that is not losing. Not trying hard enough? No.
I think the other things on his mind, the other things on his mind may have been winning without his father. And while he was thinking that, maybe they got a couple extra baskets. But there's no way a guy like that says, I'm going to lose this. He didn't even let them lose in 85.
Maybe he didn't try as hard. Maybe gave 98%, not 100. I don't know. But I thought it'd be something funny to bring up.
It's funny. I thought about that for a second, too, though. I was like, Father's Day, like, who could write that story?
I was like, would he do this on purpose? No.
All right, two more episodes left. Is there anything else you guys are waiting to see?
Honestly, I wish they would extend it. I wish they would extend it a few more episodes. I mean, it's been such a treat to watch because when I'm looking at it, it literally takes me back to my childhood because I can remember these finals. I can remember so much stuff looking back at it now, and it's just and I watch the TV and I'm my eyes are glued to it like I'm a child, like I'm just like so in awe of it, and then to see the background of it and everything that was going on behind the scenes, yeah, some good, some bad, but I'm just appreciative of all of the whole story of the whole dynasty, because if you peel back layers to any dynasty, you're going to find some similarities in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to the last two.
I feel the same way. I'm looking forward to it, and even looking past that, I'm looking forward to where they take whoever did this documentary. I need to see what's next because
right, like what else you got cooking?
Yeah, like the way they told this story, man. There's been so many teams throughout different sports, so it could be Olympics, it could be anything, man. To really go inside to see what's going on, to see their mindsets. Like, I mean, there's so many. I think about the Showtime Lakers. I mean, there's so many groups and teams that are out there that we think we know about. Like, we all thought we knew about the Bulls, but we knew nothing compared to that mindset. Like, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's next and then wrapping this up because they let a good thing go to waste. I had to see the final details, to see how they wrap it up, and maybe they'll give some credit to the GM somewhere. Because right now, rest in peace to him, but he's getting ripped.
Yeah, he really is. There's no positivity coming from none of the players. None of the players that was on the team.
Feel like,
oh yeah, they gotta be pissed.
Terrible. But when you look at his interviews, it's exactly what everyone's saying. Now, I am mature enough to know that clips can make you sound different, but
absolutely,
when you win a championship and you're talking about the organization, it's the team, it's the organization. Like, bro, just celebrate and go. Like,
right. Just enjoy the moment.
Right, yeah. It's crazy, but I hope that's something I am looking forward to. Hopefully they give him some light, because right now my guy has been fired up the entire time.
Right. Well,
two things there. I remember after episode 1 and 2, Bush, you're over there saying, what else do they have left to show us? And now we're at episode 8, and you're like, I don't want this to end.
I don't want it to end. Give us 11 and 12, please.
That one. And Torrey, the producer, Jason Heyer, is a friend of a friend, so maybe we'll have to get him to come on, and we can see what he's got in store. So we'll have to
see, man. They're killing it. I mean, I love it. I mean, to learn seriously, like I had my son watching it. You know, my wife has been watching it. Like, I mean, everyone, you just learning something different. And, you know, watch one of the greatest athletes and greatest figures of all time work. It's been a different experience, man. And it's honestly made me question myself. Like, how competitive.
Right, you're like, damn, could I work a little bit harder? Like, could I, you know.
Pride in saying I was a hard worker. I'm like, dang, did I even work? You know?
Right. But sometimes you gotta put that into perspective too, because like that football work and that basketball work is a little bit different now. It's two different worlds. But I can see what you're saying though. You do kind of like you look at Jordan and how he treated the game. You're like, well, shit, like I could have did like 40 or 50 more pass sets after my post practice pass sets. You know what I'm saying? Like I could have went and did more. I could have got 5 lifts during the season instead of 4. You know what I'm saying? Like I could have.
And not be able to move.
Exactly. So, you know, I think, you know, obviously you got 9 years in, 12, and everybody else, you run your own race and you have your mindset. But he had this mindset when he was a child, like he was a kid and around his brothers and his fathers. His fathers pushed him, you know. It all depends on your background and where you come from. That right there was instilled in him when he was knee high, probably.
Yeah, like little man syndrome.
Seriously. But he wasn't little.
He wasn't little.
Right.
Yeah, he felt like the underdog. Like everything was, you know, about what he couldn't do, and it worked for him.
You know,
the one thing you have to say is, no matter how hard he was on his teammates, and they probably hated him during that time, they all said he pushed them to where they needed to be. And you see a lot of coaches like that. Like I remember Jimmy Johnson saying he hated being the coach of the Cowboys because he had to be this tyrant that they hated because it would make them come together. So in times when they needed each other on the field, you know, they used him like, oh, we hate the coach, da, 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 da. But they all thank him later. And you're seeing that now in these interviews with all the other players.
That's a good point. You know, especially in the league, in the NFL, it's like you have to take a certain mindset to players because you got to manage 53 plus guys. You know what I'm saying? So like, it has to be your standard. You know, you have to have a standard of excellence. You can't be a player's coach too early. You have to kind of earn that, you know, with your track record. So that's how I felt with Sean Payton. I went back to playing New Orleans in 2018, and I didn't recognize the Sean Payton that I got drafted by in 2007. And the 6 years I spent there, it was a totally different person, but you understood his track record and the leadership that they had in place. So if you didn't fall in line, your ass was see ya, gone.
See ya.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jimmy Johnson cut somebody for falling asleep in a meeting. And he said, what if Troy Aikman would have fell asleep? And he said, I'd have woke his ass up.
Yeah, right. Falling asleep in a meeting, damn.
Your track record gets you to it.
Guy who they see is expendable. It's all
man. I remember. I got a story for that rookie camp. There was a dude that we signed. This D tackle was about 6'5", like 340. This kid could do backflips. I was training with him in Philly, and he didn't get drafted because he was a real small school guy. Got in some trouble, whatever. The Saints ended up bringing him in. Man, this dude could barely make it through pre-practice. So you know, you got Torrey. You know, we got walkthrough, we got pre-practice, walkthrough, stretch. Shit, after stretch, he was dog tired. Like he had the trainers over there by him, but he lasted for 30 minutes of a practice. Peace.
Cold world.
So.
All right. Well, we got 2 more episodes left. Can't wait for them. We got some Karl Malone and John Stockton coming up. Some Reggie Miller. I think that Reggie Miller series is going to be great. I remember 7 games. Yeah. I'm excited for that. We'll be back for one more of these. Right, Torrey?
We'll be back.
Same time next week.
Same time, same place.
Yes, all right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Perfect.